Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show tonight. My name is Jay Slim, and you're tuned in to Love, Passion, and Lifestyle. Today, I have a very good friend in the house, Zsolt. He's got a lot to tell us about photography, but hey, I'll let him do the talking, okay? So, over to you, Zsolt. Welcome to the show, bro. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Zsolt Abraham, and I'm a banker. I've been working in the financial industry for about 10, 12 years now.
Wow.
And I've been doing photography about 4 or 5 years.
Wow, that's some time.
Well, the thing is with photography is that I never wanted to do it. It just kind of happened. In 2017, I went for a month-long trip into Southeast Asia, and the only thing that I had with me is a phone. I've been to such beautiful places, and I've seen sights that I literally made my eyes tear. And each time I was like, "Hey, let's take a picture," and just the photo that I got out of the camera wasn't, living up to expectations, to reality. And I took about like 4,000 or 5,000 pics around the month, and that's when I was like starting to think about maybe this is a limitation to create my vision. So let's get a camera. Let's see what I can do with it.
Wow.
And let me tell you, at first I was just terrible.
I can understand that.
Yes, before I came here, I started looking back at my older pictures, and I was just like, oh my God, that's just bad.
Wow.
and the funny thing was that I'm always have been overachiever, like a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And photography was the first thing that I started doing just for the fun of it, not to be good or not to be the best, but hey, it's Saturday, let's grab my camera and let's walk around the city and just create. And there was zero expectations, there were zero outcomes, there was zero vision. I was just going with the flow, and I really fell in love with that because that pressure that I have all the time on me, that I need to be the best.
Right.
Like that little guy on your shoulder. But I used to play sports competitively. I played basketball for 12 years. And because of that, it was kind of being drilled into me until I was very young, is that you're only a man if you do 120%. And this was the first time really when I didn't have this pressure about doing anything. And it kind of just evolved.
Wow.
First, I was taking pictures of anything that I saw was interesting.
And where did you grow up? Did you grow up? Well, let's start from where are you from?
I'm from Hungary. I'm from the countryside south of Budapest. I grew up on a farm. Actually.
What's the name of your city?
It's not a city, it's a village. It's called Helvetia. It's a very rural place. Everybody's in agriculture. My family was in agriculture as well. So we had like chickens, pigs, cows, and fields of produce.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun to have all that space.
It was a big change when I moved up to the city. Granted, like our house was very big with a very large garden, but that came with a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Work. Most of my summers as a child, we were, instead of hanging out with friends or just enjoying the summer break, we were either picking potatoes, tomatoes, or we were practicing basketball.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, okay. And just tell me, you've said a lot about how you found love in photography, which is completely fascinating, man. I think that's something unique in how you found so much interest in what has become so important to you today.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the influence photography has had in your life until this point?
I guess one of the things I can point out is perspectives.
Right.
The thing with photography is that you can have a bunch of different lenses that you can put on the camera itself. The thing is that if you know photography, is that about that 50 millimeter focal length is what you see with your eyes naturally.
Right.
This is how you perceive biologically the world around you.
Right.
And putting on either a wider view or like a shallow depth of field, it distorts the picture in a way that you as a human cannot perceive. And with this, you can effectively play with what you show, what you do not show, and how you perceive the natural world around you. May that be a human subject, or may that be nature or something else.
Right.
And that really has taught me to start thinking about things differently and viewing things differently as well. Because you see, for example, a tree. What I see is not just the tree, but everything around it, how you position it, where do you look at it from, high above or very low below on the grass level, how, for example, a cat or like a bunny would perceive it. And you can really play around with this sort of the different perspectives to create something entirely different. And I think the biggest takeaway of this is that it doesn't really matter who you are, like your reality compared to everyone else's. You can look at the same exact thing, but you can arrive at different truths, and doesn't make it wrong or right.
So now we talked a little bit about how you found love and what that and how that influences your life until this point. At what point did you realize that this was a passion and it's something you actually wanted to take to the next level?
I very distinctly remember this. One thing that have always fascinated me is astrophysics and generally just space. Like, wow. I went to this workshop that we went outside of the city overnight to Hortobágy, which is east of Hungary, northeast, near Debrecen. And it's one of the darkest spots in the country.
Wow.
And there was these very, very old wells, 200, 300 years old, that are still functional in the middle of nowhere. So we were just taking pictures of the well with the Milky Way in the background. And then I ended up taking a picture, with the same picture. I set down my camera, and then I kept taking the same picture over and over again about 3 hours.
Wow.
So what happens then? So if you have everything remain the same, the only thing that is changing is the rotation of the Earth. In turn, the stars rotate as well. And when you keep overlaying these pictures on top of each and every one, what you happen is that these streaks, these circles, where effectively these stars are creating these streaks of light in the sky, and then I looked at the picture and I realized is that I just exposed the fourth dimension over a two-dimensional surface. I was able to visualize time, and I thought this is just magic.
That is definitely a turning point. If you can do that, I can see a passion growing from that.
Yeah, it was like super cool, man. Because the thing is, you can perceive time, like events happen one after the other, but capturing the passage of it is magical. It makes sense, it's science, but when you look at the picture, it feels just magic.
What were some of the challenges you faced along the way?
The first challenge that I faced was the first challenge was making sure that I can create pictures that I can be proud of. In a sense that, especially if I have a subject with me, like a person, then I create pictures that they are happy about, which is 99% technical. You have to have a vision, and then you have to have the right settings, and consider not just, making sure that your face is in focus, for instance, and you're in a nice pose, but a photographer really looks at every single pixel that you take a picture of, and and how does that look? Does it detract or deviate your focus from what you're trying to tell in a picture? Composition, color, light, and I sucked with this at first. So probably the first 10,000 pictures that I took, they're all trash. Like I should delete them, to be honest.
So you mentioned perspective and a photographer paying attention to specific details.
Yeah.
How do you train yourself to get this kind of perspective? Is that something that comes over doing photography with time, or that's something that you need to have before you start doing photography?
No one is born with this. It is definitely learnable.
Right.
One of the key things that I've started doing was started following photographers' Instagram and see what they were doing. And why is it that, for example, a portrait, you looked at it, it has this wow factor, and then when you look at yours, it's a flat image. And you need to have some sort of critical feedback to yourself. Is that, okay, what is different between the two? That's number one. Number two, I think the most I've learned was that I just watched YouTube videos of little Pixing Perfect. Thank you so much. You've taught me so much. You have no idea. Like about composition, how does different focal length behave in the same setting, and because it's a very visual art, you have to see and you have to keep practicing. But the most I've learned was to be honest, was keep going back to the same places, to the same locations, and taking the same pictures over and over and over and over again.
Wow.
Like one of my favorite things to do is go up to the castle at sunrise. I mean, you know, like at the Fisherman's Bastion, I take a couple or like a subject, like a person with me. And then I try to take the same sort of like settings, same sort of pose, same sort of compositions, and then you just hone it. You see what you can do better with it. And the changes over time are very subtle, but if I look at the picture that I've took, for example, 3 weeks ago versus like 2 years ago, it's light and day, and ultimately this is where you get the knowledge and an experience, especially if you want to make money out of this. You need to be on top of your game. You need to know the location. You need to go know the settings. You need to go how the light behaves in different areas, and not something that you figure out there on your own. At work, one of my mentors, like one of like the best advice that I've ever got, and I think it's true in every areas of life, is that if you're not prepared, prepare to fail. And that's it. Just prepare.
I agree with you on that. How did you start building on your passion? So let's say now you realize, okay, I have love for, you know, photography, and, you know, I know that I have, okay, the perspective and the technical knowledge on how to start taking pictures. So how did you start? And you can tell me, for example, how you started with the gear, for example, how you started with the subjects, how you picked the subjects, the location, things like this.
Sure. There is an interesting takeaway from this, which is at first I was wanting more and then less. At first what I did was that I upgraded my gear from like a small sensor lens to a full frame like professional camera. I bought one for second-handed, and then I ended up getting like 6-7 lenses. I was like thinking like you need to have a tool for each job. And then eventually sold it all. I have 2 lenses and the same full frame camera, and that's it. So it was kind of like trying to solve different problems just by throwing money at it. Right now I'm at the kind of mindset that I want to be able to solve every kind of client gig or every shoot with one or maybe two tools. It's not about, having the most precise and best tools for the job, but how you utilize what you have to make the best of it. And that comes with practice. And I thought that was like a really cool challenge from my part as well.
Right.
I think Jet Li said it is like, do not be afraid of the guy who practiced 10,000 kicks. The real dangerous guy is the one that practiced 10,000 times one kick. Yeah. And I'm like trying to aim to be that person. Just with photography, no kicking.
If you had to give advice to someone right now who is thinking of starting photography, what would that be?
Just literally grab your camera and start taking pictures. That's it. Like literally, that's all you have to do, because crappy picture or like an imperfect one is still better than the one you never made. You just have it on you.
And every other thing else comes with time.
Yes, just as with everything, practice makes perfect. You don't need to worry about it. Just do. Okay. Enjoy the process. Don't focus on, am I gonna get a Pulitzer out of this shoot? Enjoy it. Yeah.
I know there's a lot of things going on in your life. For example, work, for example, family, friends, your hobbies as well, photography to start with. How do you combine your passion in photography and every other thing else going on in your life?
It's actually really difficult. Sometimes I really find myself strapped for time or even energy. Due to my job, I usually work about 10 hours a day. Right. So oftentimes the most difficult part, especially if I have a paying gig, is to go home and then sit down in front of the computer again and, edit for 3 or 4 more hours. And I made some adjustments because there were been cases where I just couldn't live up to the expectations or the promises that I made because of this. The number one is that, for example, the shooting gigs that I accept now are only in the mornings before work.
Right.
One benefit of this is that there are, number one, less people on the streets, so the pictures you can take are more intimate. Number two is that you have this, golden hours early in the morning.
Yeah.
When the sun is not high up, and then it's less harsh, and you have a softer light, which is gorgeous. And number three is that I've started working with a professional graphic designer who helps me, edit my pictures into the vision that I have rather than theirs. So I can keep the pictures consistent, high quality, and I only have to worry about what I like, which is interacting with the clients and actually taking cool photos.
I think that's a good strategy.
It's a strategy that I had to employ not by choice, but by constraints.
And when starting, for example, as a newbie in photography, can someone foresee this and plan ahead of this, or time just basically determines when you get to that point where you can balance it?
It really depends on what type of photography that you're doing, to be honest. I mean, you can do astrophotography where you only depend on the weather, basically, when there's a full moon.
And what kind of photography do you do?
I do astrophotography and portrait, like couple photography.
Okay.
But you can do macro, where you're just taking pictures of very small things like bugs or flowers. You can do nature photography, where you really have to go out in nature to and align yourself with the behavior of the animals that you're trying to shoot. All of them poses very different and distinct challenges. Ultimately, you need to figure out, number one, what is it that excites you? One thing that I would advise against is trying to do everything. Number one, you're gonna bankrupt yourself with the gear. Number two is you're gonna be a jack of all trade but master of none. If you want to create a business out of this or something that actually pays for itself, then you need to create some sort of niche. What is it that differentiates you from everyone? And everything is not the answer. So just pick something and, just laser focus on it. And then the rest will sort of come to you because you learn, for example, for nature photography, like you need to be aware of, like, is it a night animal or day animal or something that, like, for example, cats or like big cats or wolves, they are only active at sunrise and night. Like deer is like, if you want to photo like a big group of them, you need to aware of the season, their mating season, and like where they're moving, for instance. So there's a lot of research that actually goes into photography as well.
Wow.
Same with like astrophotography. So right now we are out of the season just because how the Earth tilts. The Milky Way core is not visible from the northern hemisphere at all, and it will not be until April. And then you need to consider that it needs to be a new moon, because then the light of the new moon detracts from the stars. You need to consider the speed of the rotation of the Earth so that you can have sharp photos, and you need to be in a dark enough place without clouds and etc. So like, you see a cool photo, but in reality, all of these would have 10, 20, 30, 40 hours of planning that goes into just
that one shot.
That one shot. One thing that I really hate is that your camera takes such amazing photos, and it's like, yes.
It's interesting because I think from a layman's perspective, we do not pay a lot of attention to the details that go into that one shot. What we see is a really cool, nice picture, and that's it, But it's so interesting to see or to hear your perspective as a professional photographer. It's amazing. If you had to give people out there who are trying to develop their passion in photography on how to grow, what would that be?
I guess number one is just don't be afraid to learn. There are so much tools and educational material out there online. You like literally YouTube, you can be a professional photographer in the middle of 20, 30 hours. For free. You can learn Photoshop, Lightroom, all the technical software that you ever need. You can learn color theory, science, and physics around how the camera itself captures light without having to invest a cent in it. And you can just use your phone. Like, you don't need a professional photography gear. Like, I can literally go out with you right now, and I have my iPhone here, and we could get killer shots of you anytime. And it's not about the gear anymore. It's not about whether you Canon, Sony, or Fuji. It's like, they're all amazing. Cost a lot though. But that's the point. Like, the technology is there. It's not the limiting factor anymore. It's about seeing. Like, you need to train your eye ultimately, because the knowledge is there, the technology is there in your pocket. So to differentiate yourself, you need to have that photography eyes, and for that you just need to keep practicing.